Hi, my name is Benny Johnson. As some of you know, I've been struggling with addiction. However, I decided to change my life and went into recovery. I've started this podcast 90 Days Clean, and I want to take you along in my journey. What does lie ahead of me? Let me be frank, I do not know. Will I ever drink again? I do not know. This is how Stairway to Redemption was born. It is my search for answer in a real-time process of what is going to work for me. It is then my aspiration to help you figure out what's going to work for you. It is our journey together. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Stairway to Redemption. This week, I'm back with my dear friend Rich, who was the subject in the, how to call it, the guest on episode 33, 365 days later, other episode I forgot, and he's been like the recurrent guest on our Addiction in Fiction feature. This week we're gonna talk about, first of all, our state of the man addresses, and also the challenges of disclosing your sobriety to the public and how you should do it and how much you should disclose. But yeah, before let's welcome Rich. Rich, how you doing?
Hello, what's happening?
All right, yeah.
So things are really great. I mean, things are good. Who's really great? You know, when somebody says, "Oh, everything's great," it's like, well, let's tone it down. And that's why I said, yeah, great because I'm sober, but it's actually everything's good because I don't want to go too crazy overhand. And you know, I just hit 2 years, 8 months. Not that I'm counting, but like I was one that counted every day when I first got sober, and some people like that, some people don't. To me, it helped me. It really did the first year. And then the second year, it was like by month, and now, I'm almost at 3, which I'm coming. And again, it's one day at a time, staying in the present. However, it doesn't mean that you can't look forward to things, where July 25th is 3 years for me, which is just mind blowing. But, I'm at 2 years and 8 months and things are going really well, and we'll see what happens. I mean, April Fool's is coming up, so who knows? Who knows what's going to happen on Tuesday? I'm just joking.
Yeah.
And again, I don't have a crystal ball, but everything is really good. And I look back to where I was and how, and then I mean, I got a revelation the last cut. We'll get into it in a little bit,
Okay.
but I had a revelation of why I drank, and it's not like, all right, Benny, I know why I drank. Now I can go to the bar. It's nothing like that. It's like I realized that alcohol. I didn't have a problem with alcohol. I had a problem with me and certain situations, and alcohol was just like they always say, and it's everybody says it at one time or the other. A temporary solution for a permanent problem. And that's what it was for me. And now that I've realized why I drank, I don't want to do it, and where I don't get that compulsion and I'm really like, why should, and somebody told me, and this is key to anybody that's new, you are not giving something up. What you're doing is you're putting down something that hurts you from being the great person that you were meant to be. Once I heard that, I'm like, look, I'm not giving anything up. I'm just putting something down that hurts me. I mean, you would be an idiot and forget about alcohol. Just, take some, like whatever you're using. I don't know, you're eating too much. You're having fats. You're eating all fat, and this and that, or you're smoking or whatever. And, but that's hurting you. It's not, you're giving up smoking. You're not giving up food. You're just doing things you're putting stuff down so that you could be the best version of yourself.
Like you're not giving up something that's bad. Giving up something that's bad for you is not actually giving it up. It's just like, because you're not getting any benefit from it anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you can you could call it a sacrifice or whatever, but giving it up is like, that's what I think from what I've read, what I've seen, and what I've heard from different alcoholics and drug addicts and everybody, that's like a big thing, where it's like, I think it catches everybody. Oh, I got to give this up. Da, da, da. And then when they realize they're not giving it up and I can still have a great time doing whatever I do, I can go to a party. And I don't need alcohol to have a great time and be, I mean, you could still be funny. You don't have to just trip all over everybody and dance on the top of the bar.
Yeah.
But that's the opening address or opening statement that, to me, right now, everything is really good. And looking back, and I don't have any regrets of the past. The thing is, you look back at the past. I can't change it, but I can rewrite. I can write what the future ending's going to be, and that's something that is also, uplifting to me.
That's good. That's beautifully said. Yeah. So funny thing you mentioned, like going to a party and still be funny, because I wanted us to go together because lately I went on a trip about like 2 weeks ago to a wedding in Bali, Indonesia, and then I went on a solo trip to Australia right away to watch the Formula One race, and then I'd never been in Australia. I don't know if you know about me. I love Formula One.
Oh yeah.
But the trip in Bali was for a friend from college that I haven't seen in a while, and most of the attendees, not most, but a lot of them were friends from college that necessarily didn't know that now I'm sober. And the weeks leading to that trip, I had like some minor concerns, because I started thinking of, ahead and the discussion we'll have, how much I will have to disclose to people that, I no longer drink, about my sobriety, explain myself, what happened. And that actually led to the main topic of this episode is how much should you tell about your sobriety when you go in public. Beforehand, I could always I wear my sobriety on my sleeve, whether, but I noticed there's a difference between when you meet new people and you tell them that you're sober versus meeting the people you used to party with like 10 years ago, because I graduated college in 2012. And a lot of those people I haven't seen in years, right? I haven't seen, there was my former roommate there, which, we had a falling out after he moved out, because let's say we were not compatible as roommates. We squashed things, like it was a good time seeing him over there. That was great, running into him. Like, we mended things, and yeah, even like at first thinking about the person that I going there and seeing him, or running into the people that I haven't seen in a while and telling them that now I'm sober, I was a little bit apprehensive at how much I should disclose. But hey, this is the topic of this episode, and we're gonna get to it. But yeah, so now that the first thing, the state of the mind address are like, yeah, let's start with what do you think?
But one thing
Yeah.
I do want to tell you is, that, once you leave the United States, you could have a drink and you could like have two different sobriety. No, I'm kidding. Anybody out there listening, that is total like
Yeah.
nonsense. I'm just joking that, all of a sudden you could be like, oh, I'm 3 years sober in the United States, but in Europe, I'm 3 days. But
Funny enough about that, when my 2-year anniversary happened, when I was in on that trip, right? I was actually, it was when I was on my way to Bali, because my anniversary is the 5th of March, and So I didn't get the coin and I didn't care. But when I was in Australia, somebody asked me when was my sober day, and I told her, oh, I just hit you know, I just hit 2 years on the 5th of March. And they insisted on giving me my 2-year coin. So I got my 2-year coin in Australia at the meeting. Like, that was crazy.
That is.
Yeah, like, for me who doesn't like to celebrate anything, like my birthday also happened when I was in Australia. One of the best
March
birthdays.
12th. The reason I know that is because mine's April 12th.
Yeah.
And I celebrate mine like a champ. So
No, man. I don't like to celebrate. Shit. I was so happy. Nobody knew. I went to like I went to a gym. Funny enough, I went to the boxing gym I went to has a AA meeting on Tuesday. And I went to that AA meeting. It's crazy. It's a men's meeting at the boxing gym. Oh man, it's weird. Like the serendipity of things, man. Like sometimes you're like, it's too scripted to be a coincidence, right? I'm a guy who loves boxing. I type AA meeting, boom. It says like, oh, Leo Barry's boxing gym. There's an AA meeting there. I'll go there. And by the way, that's the oldest gym in the Southern Hemisphere. It was built in 1957. You go all in there. It's like old school with the bags, the posters, the ring, like the floor even. It's old school. I'm like, wow, yeah, it was.
And they don't allow tripods.
And they don't allow fucking tripods there, man. Like, fuck those tripods. All right. But like, no, I wanted to circle back a little bit on the why I don't celebrate my birthday. Like, I have like, not issues, but I'm uncomfortable when I'm like the center of attention of those like events like that, any celebratory event, because for me, when people who attend those events, for me, I have a hard time showing the same level of appreciation regardless of the degree of affinity I have with a person. And it pushed me to be self-conscious about it. I'm like, I want to be fair and nice to everybody who showed up, right? So during the event, I'm like, okay, I cannot talk to Rich too much. Rich is my boy, right? I cannot show him too much favoritism. I need to talk to everybody the same equal time or show like everybody the same appreciation. And then he messes with my head. So like, I'm not enjoying this. Like, I'm like, okay, like, like, but when, so it pushed me. I remember like when I did my first communion, we had a party and my mom was like, okay, remember to say thank you to this aunt. Make sure they call her. Like during the party, I was getting phone call. My mom was like, oh yeah, it's your aunt from Sha. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, leave me alone. I started crying, like, and I'm like, why are these people wishing like even when random people wish me happy birthday? Sometimes it like falls hollow in me. I'm like, you don't know me. Like, fuck off, man. Like, it takes me a minute. It takes me a minute to be like, hey, man, they're just being nice. Stop being a dickhead. But like, like it doesn't ring true to me like the same way. Like if, for example, Rich tells me happy birthday or happy anniversary, then a random person in the street or in a meeting who tells me happy anniversary or happy birthday, like, I don't know. That's how my brain is wired. But anyway.
Well, I sent you a picture on your birthday. It was a picture of Stevie Wonder. I said, I know I won't see you, but happy birthday anyway. But, I can see that. But, the thing is about like AA and keeping it anonymous. It all depends on, to me, it all depends on the situation. I mean, I walk around with the sweatshirt or the t-shirt from here and it'll have the symbol, the triangle in the circle, and it'll say 815 and NMWC, Long Beach, New York. But it won't say like AA on it, but like anybody that sees, and it says 2024, they think it's 24 hours. A couple of people that's right, but it was for 2024. But, if, people who see it, they know. Other people that see it, they don't know, so it's like, it's interesting. And so I do walk around with that, that to let people know, but I don't really broadcast it to other people where I'm saying, like the first word out when I meet someone, the first word out of my mouth is I'm in AA. You know, I don't do that. I don't do rich, grateful alcoholic. How you doing? You know,
Yeah.
but if the subject comes up, I don't mind talking about it.
Yeah.
Only when it comes up, and it's happened to me where someone brought, you know, and she's a good friend of mine. This woman, Amy, and she's also a client of mine. But I didn't know she was in AA, and she was in for like 18 years. She's been in, or that was at the time when I met her. She must be at least 20 years now, maybe more. But like, and it didn't come up. But I was saying something to her, and she was like, "Sounds like." You know, or whatever. And then she's like, by the way, I've been in the program for, you know, 18. And then we just, and she didn't have anything. And that's the great thing about people that are in the program. They really respect you and this and that. And it didn't change anything about like you know, like it's a client of mine. And it wasn't like, oh, I wonder if he did me right, you know, with what he recommended, you know, for what he does. You know, but it didn't. And that's the one thing that gets me a little, I don't tell everybody, but if it comes up, I do, you know, and I don't have a problem with that. I will tell and like I work out at 2 gyms, and the other gym that I work out at, I don't know if we say names. No.
Yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
said it.
So Onyx is one where we do the boxing
Yeah.
and everything. And that's the main one. That's a great gym. And then there's Planet Fitness, which is close to me. And I go there because it's like three minutes away from my house. But I was talking to someone and we just came, you know, and it was this woman and, Betsy, I remember her, and we were talking and this and that. And she was like, I'm a friend of Bill. And I was like, all right. And it was just something that I had said to her in passing. We were talking at the gym, and then it turned into like a 15-minute conversation. We hugged each other, and it's because you understand. And she has about the same amount of sobriety as I do, but she still only goes on Zoom. She doesn't go to. But I told her, come down to Long Beach, you know. And so it's like when you meet some of these people, it's like you met a long lost friend. And it was real. So I don't, you know, some people don't like saying things, you know, they're like, oh, I can't say that, this or that. But I don't know. I think it's kind of
Like, let me ask you this.
freeing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it really frees you when you say that to someone. And I tell you the truth, there are a couple of people that have asked me, friends of mine, to go out for drinks and this and that. And like, I've done things for them and they're like, oh, I owe you a couple of drinks. And I don't respond. And it's just like, yeah, we can do that sometime.
Yeah.
And because I don't want to say it by text or over the phone. I want to tell the person, like, and then that's the thing. If it's a close friend or it's somebody that knows me, I want to tell them face to face. Of course, if they live in another state, it's hard. Or if they live in California or wherever. But like, for the most part, people that know me from the past, I want to tell them face to face. I don't know. That's just a personal thing for me where I want to say, hey, you know, by the way, I'm in AA and I went to rehab and all of this stuff. And then maybe it will help them. That's why probably I want to say it face to face. But
I get it. But like, what I wanted to ask you is like, were you ever like afraid of the stigma and misconception that people have about addiction, especially, you know, when they disclose that, like, you know, like.
I was really nervous with that friend of mine, Amy, from, you know, and she's a member of this, but she just hasn't been here in a while. She's a member of our club. She knows all the people. She knows Joe, Kristen, she, you know, and I was at first afraid to say, but then it just came off. And that's the one thing that I don't know. And the thing is, this is interesting because the priest at my church asked me to write something for the bulletin about, because he thinks it's an amazing story, my story of like how I came, you know, and how I realized what was bad and how everything's good now. And also I got healed at a healing mass with my shoulder. I was in a major accident. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But and he wanted me to write something. But this is like a parish that I've been going to since I was like a little kid, since I was 79. So I was like 12 years old going to this. So everybody knows my mom, my dad, the family, everybody. So if I write this, I don't mind writing it, but then it's like, I'm like, well, I don't want them to say, have a connotation. I don't know. I'm still I'm going back and forth whether or not I'm going to write it. I might write how I finally got, I don't know if I'm going to say it sober or I don't know how I'm going to do it. To be totally honest, as you can tell, I'm still working my way through that because not that it wouldn't bother me, but if I wrote it and then, then I wouldn't want my parents then or my sisters or whatever. And it doesn't really matter because they're all proud of me. But, I think it would just go and these are people that don't know. And there are some members of the parish that are family and they don't know that I went to rehab.
Yeah.
They're like cousins and this and that. And then, not that I would have to explain anything, but then it would just open up a can of worms. Not in a bad way, but it would just be like, and why did they would be supportive, but then they'd probably be like, why'd you wait so long to tell them, So I don't know. I'm like playing that, not game, but it's going back and forth of how to word it. And because the thing is, I think whenever we talk, like your podcast, when we write something, when we do something, when we meet somebody, when we go to meetings and we talk, reaching someone out there and just like letting them know that it's okay to be in this situation. That's why I'm like, saying, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because you can help another struggling person, whether it be food addiction, regular drug addiction, alcoholism, or whatnot.
Yeah, like I can see that. Like, like me personally, when I think about disclosing, do I fear stigma or like misconception? Not really. Like I snap out of it really quick because I remember how I felt, the level of despair I felt. Like there's nothing that can be done to me that I've not done to myself worse. And when I think about that, I'm like, it's not like what somebody else thinks that's gonna hurt me. Like the level of hurt that I did to myself, that I did to my loved ones, man, like it's nothing in comparison to like somebody else thinking that I don't know that I'm fuck up or anything like that. It doesn't really like it might the way for I might be a little bit apprehensive at like, oh, should I disclose? Should I not? The only time where like I'm like pumping the brakes a little bit is like what is gonna be the scope of me disclosing it. For example, if when I went to Canada a few years back to watch another F1 race, I had lunch with like some family or friends and they pop up, like a bottle of Jack Daniels, wanted to do shots, like, if I wanted some, and I said, no, I don't drink anymore. Like, I was uncomfortable disclosing my sobriety because are my parents, like, friends since they were in their 20s. Like, the dad I call him my cousin, but we're not, like, related, was my dad's roommate, back when they were in their 20s. So, like, me disclosing that I'm sober, I thought will affect how they see now my parents, like, I didn't want them to think that,
That's the same
my
thing, yeah.
my parents raised me wrong, like, like them, like, thinking less of my parents. And in that,
your parents enabled you.
in that situation, the scope of my sobriety, of me disclosing, will like reach, like, might give them like thoughts on, like, how I was raised. My parents did an amazing job raising me. I couldn't be proud of it.
Same with me.
Yeah. And that, thing of my addiction, I think has nothing to do with them. Like, they couldn't like prevent it. Like,
Not to cut you off,
Go ahead.
but the thing is, and I wanted to bring this up,
Yeah.
I think today, kids, or today's day and age, you can say some crazy stuff. Not crazy, but stuff can be, and it's accepted differently than years ago. Like everybody hears AA, they think you're a Bowery drunk. They think you're falling down steps. You think you're the local drunk walking down the street, and it's not. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, or you could be a garbage man. You could be whatever and have this problem, and it just affects so many people. But people today are more accepting of stuff like that than I just see it with, like with kids today. They just, with everything, and I'm not going to bring up certain things because this is just, we're talking about AA.
Yeah.
But, there's certain things that happen and they're just like, oh, all right, no big deal.
Yeah.
And it could be just what's going on in the world today. And, the kids and young people, and I think it's who you talk to. And, I think it's the older generations might be a little bit more like, oh, you don't talk about that. You don't say that.
Yeah.
And the younger ones are like, hey, there are a lot of young kids I'm seeing now in AA and doing other things. And it just might be a little bit more acceptable that, and which is a good thing, that maybe you got a problem, you address it and you talk about it instead of let's keep it under the carpet, let's keep it hidden. Let's keep it, in a proverbial closet, with so many things. I don't, we don't have to expand on that, but, and I'm not saying it depends on, I'm not saying I agree with everything, but, like now things are a lot more acceptable and, that's good, bad, and indifferent, but also things are talked about a lot more where mental health used to be, oh, you must be really effed up.
Yeah.
Really, you got major problems that you got to go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I got a problem and I don't want, it's not that I can't talk to my parents or I can't talk to someone else, or I can't talk to a priest or I can't talk to this, but let me go to someone professional. And I think that's out in the, and you see NBA players saying stuff and actors and sometimes I don't like hearing from the people as the celebrities because they can influence you in the wrong way.
Yeah.
But with certain, like they can tell you, oh, this person's the best. But when it comes to like certain issues like mental health, and I like it. And when they talk about like there's a commercial now with Snoop Dogg and Tom Brady, and they're talking about like racism, but they don't say racism, but they're like, I don't like you because of this, or the color of your skin, or I don't like you because of this. And Snoop at the end of the commercial says, I hate that we had to do a commercial about this because it was like, I don't like it because the way you look, the way you talk, the way you act. And both of them, Tom Brady and him, were like saying, yeah, this is terrible that we have to do a commercial, but it's something that has to be said.
Yeah.
And I just think things are a little bit more in the open, but that still doesn't mean that I'm going to be like, yep, I'm an AA.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like,
and go dancing down the street, skipping. Well, if I skip down the street, then people might think something else. But I'm saying, I just, it depends. But I think with people, it's easier to say, and if it comes up, like, like I said, you don't just say, hey, I'm an AA.
Yeah. So this like actually leads me to my next question. Now that like even if you're ready to or willing to tell people, now sometimes you have a pressure to explain that might like stop you. For the wedding, for example, I haven't seen those people for like over like 5, almost 10 years. And I used to drink with them. And it's not like shame, but just sometimes like I play the tape forward and I see how I'm gonna explain it. And the way to explain it, sometimes the pressure, I'm like, that's gonna be a headache to have to tell people. But you know what's funny? When I was there, I barely explained anything. Like was just like some of them knew that I was in recovery because they follow me on social media.
Mm.
Those who didn't know, like the other party guests who do not know me, when they were like, "Oh, why you not drinking?" I was like, "I'm just don't drink." Some didn't even ask questions, man.
Yeah.
I didn't have to explain. One asked me if I was Muslim because it was Ramadan, and I was like, "No, I'm not Muslim. I just don't drink." And they were like, they left me alone, man. Yeah, my former roommate who I haven't talked to 10 years prior that, like, he heard that I was sober. And we sat down, talked to catch up a little bit, and it was surprised. It was like, Benny, really? Like, because yeah, some people are surprised that I'm in recovery because I was not the fumbling to like
Yeah.
drunk, you know, like making a fool of myself all the time in college. Like because I was in college, I was motivated, like I was still trying to get my degree, get my citizenship. So my college days of drinking were not my worst. Like,
Yeah,
that it happened
like
way
they
after.
always say, it is until it isn't.
Yeah.
And the one thing is that, you know, with people then y- it's weird because I've told other people, and they're like, you drink just as much as me. And that could like, you're not an alcoholic, you drink just as much as me. And like, that could turn you into like a relapse where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not as bad as that. And I was like, and all the friends who said that to me, I'm like, you're wrong. Because yes, we went out, we drank a lot, but then you went home and you went to bed. I kept the party going all night. And
Yeah.
that's the problem because yes, you might think on the surface that, oh, you don't drink that much, because we were hanging out together, but you don't know what happened. And it's like anything, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And, that's the thing. There's some people that like who, I mean, there's always a different way to say it. You could say, oh, I went to the doctor and I found out that I'm allergic to alcohol.
Yeah.
That's why I don't drink anymore.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
That's like, no, that's an old
Yeah.
school one
Hey, that's
because you would go to your doctor and say, oh, I'm allergic to alcohol now. They would ask the question and it's like, oh, that's a good one, but and then they would know what being allergic to alcohol meant. But but it's a very I don't know, you have to tread water, tread it lightly and see. And I think depending on how the conversation's going, you could go one way or the other.
Yeah, and also the other thing that comes with the pressure of explaining, you expose yourself, expose yourself to some intrusive questions from other people. They can ask you like, "What's your drug of choice? What's the most fucked up thing that you did?" Like, for example, I remember when I talked to somebody about it, I said like I heard a lot of people like that I'm not proud of. And, they said, and then I said, "Oh, do you want to tell me what you did?" And I'm like, no. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, that's like, I'm not going to tell you every single person I hurt. Like, like I don't, it's not that probably maybe that I don't want to relive it right now, but also like, that's very like, like personal. It's like almost a fifth step when like admitting to your another human being like your wrongdoings. Like yeah, you don't admit those things to a random person, right? Like there's a degree of affinity, of closeness that you say, that you see it to be. You not go ahead and be vulnerable to everybody. So like when you explain like that, some people are, I don't know, it comes with intention, but you can tell that some people just want to know, oh, what's the worst thing that you can do? Like,
They
like,
want to hear the gory details.
yeah, like, I'm
And
like,
that's like,
nah, I'm
it's
not,
like,
yeah, I'm not a Dracula. Yeah, I don't need to do
you
that.
don't need to do, and they want to just hear it for whatever.
Yeah.
Because I think people today, they're a voyeuristic society. Not
Oh,
that they
yeah.
would see it,
Woo!
but they want to know, oh,
Yeah.
what did you do, Benny? And how that, and it's like, come on, or what did you do, Rich? And it's like, I'll tell certain people, but then when they start crying and they're like, tell me more. And I'm like, no, I'm not, that's not, that's not going to happen because it gets crazy.
Yeah.
And,
No,
You
but
know, I think, and the people that know you or
mhm.
other people, and they respect that because they'll know when to stop prying.
Mhm.
Because other people will just pry.
Yeah, the prying part is like, yeah, like that loss of privacy, like, like,
They want to hear the gory details, and
yeah,
it's like, well, why should I have to tell that to you?
yeah.
You know?
The other thing that I wanted us to talk about was the social awkwardness and sometimes the isolation that comes. Like when people want now know that like you sober, uh, like they want like not being included in some social events or trying to like. What's your take on that? Like, do you care that people try to cater to you? Or okay, there are two things here. There's one scenario where like you can be now excluded of social events um, because like people go to places where they're gonna be a lot of drinking and they don't want to invite you because they don't, for various reasons. For example, they don't want you to feel uncomfortable, or they don't want you to relapse, or like they don't want even to be around a sober person.
I'll
Let's start with that scenario. How
I'll
do you
tell
feel?
you, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, it
Mm-hmm.
happened,
Mm-hmm.
and it happened like when I first got sober. And thank God, I mean, I pray and I thank God every day that this came not easy, but there were really, I mean, there are a couple of things, my story. There are a couple of things where I could have relapsed, with
Mm-hmm.
bleep.
Bleep.
And also with the thing with the sponsorship, when my sponsor and I kind of parted ways
Mm-hmm.
amicably, but that could have forced me to go, set me back to drinking, but it didn't. But so I'm blessed that I was able to embrace this program so much, and that I really lost the compulsion to drink quickly, or not quick. Yeah, I guess quickly, because I know we talked about this in the past that some people at meetings, older people almost wanted us, not us, wanted me or you or whatever to fail, or not to fail, but like, why did it happen so easily to you?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that.
And
Yeah, like yeah. No,
like,
only they didn't want us to
they
fail.
didn't
Like
want us
yes,
to fail, but they were like,
yeah,
oh, you didn't have sweats, and you didn't have this, and you
yeah,
didn't have this, and you didn't have this like we did when we went through.
mm,
And it's like, well, everybody's different, and you should be more happy that it came
yeah.
easily to us. But the thing was, it was a couple of years ago. My sister went to a Yankee game, and we always went to Yankee games with
Mm-hmm.
her kids and her husband and this and that. And I was like, "Oh, what am I, Swiss cheese? Or do I smell or something? You didn't invite me." And she was like, "Oh, well, I didn't want to because you go to Yankee game and and we always sit in the bleachers, and that's
Yeah.
just a drunk fest." But not a drunk fest, but there's a lot of beer and
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of alcohol at any sporting event, and she just thought that, it would not be conducive for my sobriety, and I'm like, "What? I'm never gonna go to a Yankee game ever?" I'm like, "I went one," and I told her, I said, "I went with Benny." I said, "We went to a game," and she knew that, and she's like, "Yeah, but that's and I'm like, yeah, but what? Just because the two of us go, then there's no alcohol around us, because we're both sober. Then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I'm like, if I sit with you, I sit with Benny, I sit with anybody, there's going to be somebody drinking, or there's going to be alcohol around her, And then so she was like, all right, I get it. And now she sees more, and I respected that
Mm-hmm.
because she didn't want anything bad to happen.
Yeah.
So I totally love that she did that, and then wasn't like, "Oh, come on. We're gonna go we're gonna be drinking, but you have to sit there and not, and like kinda like open the beer in front of my nose. Sorry, you can't have it."
Yeah.
No, it wasn't like that, but, that was one thing. And now, I mean, relatives and friends, I can be at a party or a situation, and they can have alcohol in front of me. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Like I empathize with your situation. Like I wouldn't like to be babied either. Like don't tell me like don't think for me. Like that's a thing that like, like why don't you should like a proper what I would like to have happen to me was, hey, ask me if is we're going to the game, for example. Ask me if it's gonna be okay for you to come. Are you gonna be triggered? Do you feel comfortable? Don't make that decision for me that like, oh no, I'm not gonna invite you because like
Yeah.
you're not gonna, like I'm not sure if you. But I guess like since she is your sister, it might have come from a place of love.
I think, yeah, and I get it that way because
Mhm.
I'm like, all right, and that I understand, but I was like,
Yeah.
but I'm like, now we're gonna go to a Yankee game. We're trying to plan to do something
Mm-hmm.
because my birthday's coming up sometime around there in April. Maybe we're gonna go to a game, seeing if the kids, because now their school schedule and just to see what we could do.
Yeah.
But, so now it's different. But I mean, it's going on it's 2 years, 8 months.
Yeah.
So, but she understands. And I said, look,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to relapse, it's not going to be because you brought me to
We do a fucking Yankee.
It's not going to be that. It's going to be, and I'm like, it's my decision
Mm-hmm.
because that was the same thing that happened when I was hanging out with Bleep,
Uh-huh.
and I started smoking. I had quit for 16 years, 17 years. Then what was with her had like one cigarette. Then I'm like, let me have another one. Then give me half a pack. And then I started buying stuff and vaping and all this and that. And, some people had said, oh, it was her fault. And I'm like, no.
No, yeah.
I'm like, because if I say that, then that's totally different than what I believe in with the alcohol.
Yeah.
So it was my choice to smoke. And now it's over a year that I haven't had a cigarette. So now you could say out of 16, 17, 18, 19 years, 18, 17 of them were I hadn't smoked in 17 and 19 years. So, that's not that, and I'm not saying I don't have a crystal ball. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I know now that I have to watch myself with all sorts of, in different influences, not anybody in specific, but, I wanted to, because I wanted to have the cigarette and this and that, and I wanted to try it or have one. I hadn't had one. And, I had done that every so often. Even during my 16 years of not smoking, I had like tried a cigarette here or there, but I still considered myself not having a
You're like,
cigarette
no, yeah,
because I never bought a pack.
Yeah.
And I never,
It was not consistent.
and it wasn't
Yeah.
consistent. I had like I said, let me have a cigarette off a friend of mine, from a friend of mine.
Yeah.
But, but that's the situation, with people. And I love that they're protecting me. But when it comes down to it, all right, so you protect me from the Yankee game, and you protect me from going to the bar, and you protect me from going to some other sporting event. You protect me from going to, who knows, the circus.
Yeah. The circus.
Or you prevent, or, don't go down to Disney World or whatever. And that's just keeping stuff away. So then what does it mean? I can't live my life.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because you want to be, me, anybody wants to live their life like they do. And, so because there are people that, in the program 32 years, and it's like, oh, I can't go to Yankee Stadium. Oh, I can't go to I can't go to a concert. Oh, I can't do this.
I
And
don't
it's
know
like,
how to.
are you really sober, or are you just avoiding?
Yeah, they're just putting like, themselves in the closet, turning off the light and just hoping that like, nothing, but at the same time, yeah. I mean,
And they're going to
for me, that's not a way of living.
7 meetings a day.
Ooh, like, nah, that's no, A is not my life. A helped me have a handle on my life. But when it comes to me, I think I've been fortunate enough to have friends who didn't try to baby me, or like, I use the term baby, but like, to patronize me. I have a friend, shout out to them, Natasha and Carlo, who opened a bar in the Lower East Side called Batesman, after Patrick Bateman from American Psycho.
Yeah.
So yeah, they opened their bar. I was at the inauguration of their bar. ask Natasha to, hey man, like, like with the big sober curious rise of the sober curious movement, it would be great if you cater also to people who don't want to drink, have like some interesting her bar is a cocktail bar, like some interesting
Oh, no.
non-alcoholic options, and she does. She
Where is
actually
she? Where's
it's in the Lower East Side on
what's the name of it?
Batesman.
Batesman. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
Yeah, like from American Psycho. Yeah, so yeah, it was fun. I made up with some friends that I haven't seen in a while. People were having a good time. I did not feel excluded. I tried a non-alcoholic option. Like, it was not just me drinking soda or ginger ale, which is another thing that like, you know, um
I mean,
which
like,
kind of sad that like most like I mean right now the movement is strong, like the sober curious. More establishments have like non-alcoholic options that are something else than soda.
I think they're trying to do that because some people now, it's out in the open, they're getting sober, and it's like, I'm going to lose money by not having something for these people
Yeah.
because then they're not going to go to the bar or whatever. But I was thinking about it with the baseball, and also you and I, we went to games. We went to the Knicks game for your birthday last year, right? Yeah. And we had there was alcohol around us, and each time we could have we could have had something if we wanted, and that's like a choice on yourself, and I think it's a good thing that. And I appreciate these people looking out for you, or me, or you, or whoever. But at the same point, it's like, don't baby me.
Yeah.
I'm not a child.
But like, yeah, I wanted to circle back to what you said like few minutes earlier about like the skepticism of some people in when they don't think that we have struggled enough to be good, and then that like because we haven't hit rock bottom, that might also apply to not just people who are in the room, but people who are from outside. When they look at you, like you said, they don't think that, oh man, I'm drinking more than I was drinking more than him. Like, how do you approach like when people are kind of skeptic about like
Well,
your sobriety?
well, the biggest thing I heard when it was like when everything was going smoothly, and they were like, well, first year's a charm.
Oh,
No, not a charm. The first year's a gift.
yeah,
And then the second year is when you have to do the work. And it's like,
that's
all right.
fucked up to say that.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Okay, that's true. I'll keep an eye out on it. But, come on. I
That's a way of raining on somebody's parade.
and it's like raining on the parade. Yeah, it's like, oh, first year's a gift. And maybe it's just passed down, and people have been told that from other people that have gone through the program, and that's what it is. But to me, it's like you should just embrace people that are doing well. Oh, you doing well? Unbelievable. What is your key? What has kept you sober? That maybe it took me 20 years to realize.
No, I mean, like I've seen and I've witnessed people who struggle after the first year, right? Because the first year they got the day count, they got all the support, they get the party, they got the cake, and then the second year they don't get all that anymore. And I've seen some people struggle, but like never. I no, I think the best approach is to let them come to that crossroad when it comes, when they start feeling that, oh, they don't get the same attention, that that issue rises, that that the how you call it, that feeling of like, I don't want depressing feeling, but oh yeah, I got it. When they got off the pink cloud, let them get off the pink cloud and mention it instead of telling them while they're on the pink cloud that, oh, this is a pink cloud, you're gonna have to get off soon. Like, like that's like
I mean, I don't think
yeah,
that's fair.
that's fair. Like, let them enjoy the pink cloud, and when they get off, be like, okay, hey man, you want on
I
pink cloud?
think I'm still on the pink cloud. I don't know. let it just keep on going and let it go and just continue and like have positivity. I remember, and I would forget it. What is it? I would be in an argument with someone in my family,
Mm-hmm.
my mother, my sister, and it was just over nonsense. It was you're just, and it was just like it wasn't really an argument. It was more like we were discussing stuff, and I was like, you know what? You guys are forcing me. You're gonna force me to drink, and they would get like they would freak out because they
Yeah.
thought I would. And I'm like, yep, I'm going up the block, And then I was like, then I said that, and then and then afterwards I'd be like, look,
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have joked about that
Yeah.
because especially with what they knew I was like, and for me to say something like that to them was like really like because then I remember my sister and my mother were like, well, call Benny. What's Benny's phone number? And I'm like, I'm not giving it to you because you can call him.
Oh my God, that's
I
funny.
think they have your number just in case we're out or something so then they can locate.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they're like, you're going to go. I'm like, and then I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, see, I won the argument. No,
That's like holding a metaphorical gun to the head.
yeah, so
That's
no,
that's
and
not
I
nice.
shouldn't have used that.
Yeah, you should
I
not do
was not
that.
nice doing that, and then I
Yeah.
said it, and then I knew it drove both my mother and my sisters, because I think I used it on both of my sisters. I think it drove them crazy, and they were just like, "You can't." And then I apologized, and I
Yeah.
said, "Look, I cannot. I apologize for doing that. I should not
Mm-hmm.
have said that, but I should have won the argument, by the way."
All right, like before we finish that, there's one part of the full disclosure we didn't address. It's on the professional setting and the career, the work. How do you feel? I mean, you work for yourself, but I don't know in that setting. Like, how do you feel about disclose? Have you ever felt some kind of pressure that disclosing your sobriety in a work setting, job setting will affect your career or not?
Would affect it.
Yeah, like or like your revenue or like the bottom
It
line. I
it
don't know.
might, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm like, with the whole thing with the church and writing that thing for the bulletin,
Mm-hmm.
on the back of the bulletin, I have an ad I have an ad to contact me if you need my services.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, if I put that, but I don't think so. I think people today,
Yeah.
maybe years ago, 30 years ago, they'd be like, oh, there's but today I think they would more or less be like, well, maybe they have one commonality with me and they're like, you know what? I have a problem too, but I
Yeah.
never address it. And two, other people like that is awesome that you addressed your issue and you got on top of it.
Yeah.
It's a what do you call it? It's a evolving
Yeah.
situation where it's like, but like I said, no matter who it is,
Mm-hmm.
business or not, depends on each situation. It's a situation by situation, and it depends on where it's going.
Yeah.
And like if I'm like, well, and then it depends. There's give and take, but full disclosure, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because you don't know what. But I think today, more so than ever before, that it's more. I mean, look at the amount of people just on Long Island that are in AA.
Yeah.
There's so many meetings here.
Yeah.
I mean, I
That
think it's more. And if it's not someone that's an alcoholic, they have a family member because Al-Anon is big.
yeah.
So maybe it's like maybe you're talking to someone and then Al-Anon comes up. But
Mm-hmm.
there are a couple of people that I opened this up to and I told to, and then I was like, well, let me see what the repercussions are going to be.
Yeah.
And it was people that I do volunteer work with, and I was like, let me see what they say. And then they were like, oh, my brother's in AA.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, like in my profession, like like I don't mind it. I don't think it will affect my career, but I can see some scenarios like, especially with like teachers, where some it can blow back on them if like teachers, especially knowing that in the rooms of A, there's so many teachers. If I were to rank the professions in the rooms of A, first responder are the most. I
A lot
think
of them.
yeah, for a lot of them, construction workers, I would probably put teachers third or fourth. You always have a teacher in the rooms, like
But
at least two. Like they suffer. Like they're in the rooms and
like
like.
the thing is, and I was telling you about it, I teach one
Mhm.
night a week religion at the parish, and I have these 7th graders. And I don't know if I could say it. No, I would never tell the kids it.
Yeah,
But if the parents found out,
found out. Yeah.
I don't know what their reaction would be. Because
Mm-hmm.
some of them, because I know that there was one meeting that I was going to, and it was in a parish, and like the gymnasium was there, and it was in the basement of the gymnasium, and there was a mother that complained to the priest saying, "Oh, well, there's a bunch of alcoholics who are child molesters, and my daughter is up playing."
What the fuck?
And it's like,
How she goes from alcoholics to molester, man?
and she was just like general, and it was like, these are the moms that are sitting in the stands watching their kid, and they have the beer poured into like a plastic cup or something. But and I don't tell. And the weird thing is, I've been doing the catechist work where teaching these kids for the last couple of years, and one year, not this year, but the year before, where I was over a year sober. I got gifts for Christmas. I got bottles of wine. I donated it, but I didn't say to them, "Oh, I don't drink," because I didn't know
Yeah.
what the reaction would be. But I took it, I accepted it, I said thank you, and then I donated it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the one situation where, especially you're doing volunteer work, it depends on who you're doing volunteer, but when there are kids involved, people, parents are very protective.
Yeah.
And so they don't, some of them might just reflect back, oh, he's going to be drunk once and he's going to be, and it's like,
My kids are not safe
my
with
kids
him.
aren't safe.
Yeah.
So, and, and especially, I've gotten nothing but positive, reports from the kids telling their parents how they think I'm the best thing since sliced bread. No,
Yeah, there you go.
but and the person who's in charge of it tells me that, well, all the kids, they seem to love you. I was like, what? You said seem? I go, is that like, she's like joking. So she was kidding with me. But she's like, no, they all love you as a teacher. And so keep up the good work. And so that's the one where I would be hesitant to tell
Yeah.
that. But anything else, I'm going to full disclosure.
Okay.
But on a
On a case to
case situation
Mhm.
where, and see how it's going, because who knows, how conversations can get
Yeah.
twisted and turned.
All right. So I think that's a great place to close this discussion. So table this and let this
Again,
over. Yeah, but thanks Rich again for being on the podcast.
let it
Yeah.
sink in, marinate,
Yeah.
do all that good stuff,
Yeah.
and think about it,
Yep. And thank you guys for listening, and I will see you guys when I see you.
Okay,
Bye.
cool. Bye.